ICTC Administrator Mike McDermott with us this morning, and our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Todd. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's good to have you with us here today. We have to talk with you because we're wondering, with all of these school districts in Indiana County coming up with their own plans for the way they're going to be pursuing a school year, that has to impact ICTC, does it not?
Oh, absolutely. Dealing with and working with the 7 sending schools in Indiana County, it's a constant group communication back and forth between the sending schools and ICTC as to what the plans are at the sending schools and the sending school districts, and then how that affects the students coming to ICTC. So we meet regularly on Zoom, usually through meetings organized and chaired by the ARIN IU. But I get to hear all their input, get to hear the plans that they're coming up with throughout the process. And then actually yesterday we met in our monthly meeting each month. All the sending school superintendents meet here at ICTC. We did our meeting yesterday virtually. But again, that's how we coordinate all the efforts of all the sending schools and how that affects ICTC students.
Yeah, well, that being the case, some school districts might go more hybrid than anything else. I think most of them are. That means some days their kids will be in class and some days they will not. They'll be home online learning. How does ICTC handle all of that when a student from, say, Indiana is having his or her classwork at home, but they're also a student at ICTC? How does that work? What's the busing situation? That's quite the arrangement to have to make.
Right. Right now, the way the situation sits right now, out of the 7 sending school districts, we have 4 different models, 4 different sending and attendance models. When we put it all together. So for ICTC, we made our return and health safety plan back in June, and again with coordination and communication with all the sending school superintendents saying, hey, for ICTC, our best plan of action is to attend each day, have those students come each day. Because we have an AM session and a PM session, by nature, our classes are already split. Mm-hmm. So our half of the students come in the AM and half of the students come in the PM. The superintendents in the sending school districts have agreed, early on, they'll make the commitment to make transportation arrangements and get those students here at ICTC, regardless if they're attending virtually at their sending school at that point or in person. Then as things changed, as the sending schools started to consider a hybrid model, we just stuck with the plan. And the sending schools said, okay, we'll work out the transportation if the students, can come to the sending school. Busing transportation will be arranged from the sending school to ICTC. Of course, in some cases, in special circumstances, students may be able to drive to get here to ICTC. Mm-hmm. But ICTC has made the decision we're going to go in person daily, 5 days a week.
Wow. That's going to be a challenge. Number one, ICTC is such a hands-on type of school, which means that with early sessions and later sessions, your cleaning staff is really going to have to be on their toes, aren't they?
Absolutely. We're going to have a split staff where normally we'd have a maintenance staff during the day, and then as the students left and we make our transition from sending school students here during the day, and then our adult ed students mostly in the evening hours. Now we have split shifts where our concentration is going to be. We have approximately about 45 minutes in the afternoon where the AM students will leave us, and then the PM students arrive. So we have about a 45-minute window there, and that's where we're going to really concentrate on disinfecting all the surfaces, cleaning all the common touch areas, and going through the building quickly. And then also during the school day when the students are here, our big emphasis is going to be with students, disinfect in and disinfect out. In other words, we're going to have materials available where they can wipe off all the tools that they use prior to use, and then they can wipe all the tools off, after they're done using, and it gets stored back in its place for the day. So again, that's going to be a major emphasis here at ICTC, just constantly emphasizing personal protection, wearing of mask, wearing of safety equipment, disinfecting of equipment, and commonly touched surfaces.
Boy, it is a brave new world, isn't it? It's almost as if ICTC could design a whole new course, and there's a new major for universities, and base it on what ICTC or other technical schools do in disinfection and remediation, all of those different issues that have to be tackled in situations like this.
Yeah, isn't that amazing how our world changes so rapidly, and all of a sudden a point of emphasis that we sort of took for granted or ignored or maybe just weren't aware of, just how much we actually handle and touch and transfer things from person to person. And then all of a sudden, now as we're getting ready to return from school, all of that's under examination. So you're right. We've done a thorough process of examining each program area. We have our 13 different program areas, and each one of them have uniqueness to them as to how they're structured and how they're set up. So, it's really been an interesting process and a challenging process, and I'm really hoping that we're able to get back to school, get our students into good habits, having awareness of hygiene and social contacting throughout the day, and then being able to just have that continuity in our educational process.
You raise a good point there about the various different courses and the way that study courses are set. I'm sure your faculty has to have been very much involved. For instance, a cosmetology course is going to be extremely different from culinary, from machining, from the various different other fields that are taught there. And each of those, you have to have been informed by your instructors about exactly what goes on.
Absolutely. What we started with, we met regularly over the summer months. So even though the teachers weren't physically here, the new found power of virtual meetings, we would meet virtually and talk about industry standards. First of all, what is the industry doing? So how can we help use this situation to prepare our students for what they may encounter when they go to a job outside the walls of ICTC? So that was our starting point, and then of course all of the mandates and regulations and guidelines that the CDC and the Department of Education and the Governor's Office put out. Of course, those all were huge factors as well. But you brought up cosmetology, an interesting point. We wanted to section off each of the stations within the cosmetology area because of students working with clients and so forth. So we wanted to set that up as much as we possibly could as an industry standard. And we came up with the concept of, we have these barriers, these vinyl barriers in our welding booths that are colored, that the instructor can see through, so they can observe a student in a booth while they're welding, but yet the color decreases the glare and the brightness of the arc on the welder. Mm-hmm. So we contacted that same company and said, hey, do you make clear barriers? Do you make clear drop vinyl barriers? And they did. And they're heat resistant, obviously, in case they have a curling iron or something. So that was a tiny added benefit. But we borrowed something that we do in welding, and we transferred it to cosmetology just because it worked really well.
Takes some ingenuity, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it was thinking. It was common thinking, and in welding, some things we toured a facility out in Cleveland, Ohio. Lincoln Welding has a huge facility, and part of that is their educational facility. We borrowed a lot of ideas from Lincoln, again, an industry leader, and they were operating under the COVID restrictions. So yes, we did an awful lot of vesting in our programs and communication with our instructors, and again, a big concentration not only on the guidelines that are passed down by the CDC and the Department of Ed and Governor's Office, but also industry standards as well.
A lot of hard work going into it, and we're certainly hopeful that we can get this year going, and then I know that there will be times when you have to adapt to a new situation, new protocols that will become mandatory, and everybody's going to have to be flexible in those terms, but it sounds like you've got a pretty good handle on it so far.
Yeah, our goal is, regardless of the circumstances, we want to try to provide the best educational opportunity and learning environment for our students as we possibly can. We believe here at ICTC the best way to do that is, direct instruction and that hands-on approach. But we're also prepared if we have to go to the virtual pathway, hopefully not for a extended period of time, but if need be, we're prepared for that as well.
Got to be on your toes. Mike McDermott, Executive Director, ICTC. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
No, thank you, Todd. Always a pleasure.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
You too.
You too.